Hello friends, today we are going to learn very important chapter, that is isolated column footing. So isolated column footing. So load of column that is transferred through footing. We call it as a foundation. There are so many types of foundation. We also call it as a footing. So we know that for RCC columns normally isolated footings are provided, because the design and construction of such footing is very simple and economical. The isolated footing for column may be pad footing or slope footing. Maybe you can say there are two types. Okay, so two types of isolated column footing. One is pad footing and sloped footing. So pad footing having a uniform thickness. So I will explain with the figure. So pad footing is like this, where this is a column and this is your footing. If I draw a plan, then this will be your column. Okay, this is your column and this is your footing. So there is only a thickness of footing is there. So this thing is same as your slab. Now what about your sloped footing? Slope means there is a slope. So if I draw elevation, okay, and this is your footing. Your footing starts from here, okay, and this is your column, and this is your top view. So in a slope footing there is a slope, okay, that's why it's called as a slope footing. Okay, so there are two types of isolated column footing. One is pad footing and a sloped footing. Now whenever we talk about the footing, at that time we also have to consider the soil. Soil means the bearing capacity of soil. So whatever the load, total of load of your building, that is transfers through column to footing, okay, and that footing is transfers their load to soil. So your soil is able to resist your building load. So for that bearing capacity of soil is required. So we also have to consider over here the bearing capacity of soil, bearing capacity of soil, or you can also say that soil bearing capacity. The size of footing depends upon the bearing capacity of the soil. The load on unit area below footing shall be less than the bearing capacity of the soil. Okay, so soil bearing capacity is more compared to your total load which is acting below your footing, okay, to prevent the settlement of the footing. Remember this thing. And what do you mean by gross bearing capacity? So total pressure acting at the base of the footing, including sulfate of the footing, weight of the column, overburden pressure of the soil above footing, is called the gross bearing capacity. What do you mean by gross bearing capacity? Is the total pressure acting at the base of the footing, including self weight of the footing, weight of the column, overburden pressure of soil above footing is called as a gross bearing capacity. And the net pressure at the base of the footing after deducting the weight of the excavated soil. For a footing, we have to remove the soil. Excavation procedure is being done. So the weight of the excavated soil is called as a overburden pressure, is called as a safe bearing capacity of the soil. So we can also write that safe bearing capacity is equals to gross bearing capacity minus overburden pressure. Okay, so safe bearing capacity Qn is equals to gross bearing capacity minus gamma into D. So gamma into D is your overburden pressure. So where gamma is the density of the soil and D is the depth of the footing. So net pressure at the base of the footing after deducting the weight of the excavated soil is called as a safe bearing capacity of the soil. So you have to calculate the safe bearing capacity of the soil. So soil bearing capacity of different types of soils, you can say that there are different types of soil. For different types of soil, you can write that the for a rocks SBC is 450 to 3000 kilonewton per meter square. Okay, for non-cohesive soils, gravel, coarse sand, medium sand, fine sand, for that soil bearing capacity is 100 to 450 kilonewton per meter square. And for a cohesive soil, soft soil, hard or stiff clay, you can say that SBC is about 50 to 450 kilonewton per meter square. So before deciding the depth of the foundation, we have a data of the soil bearing capacity. So we required a bearing capacity of the soil. So in an isolated column footing, there are two types of footing: pad footing and slope footing. We can use any of this as per requirement. We have to decide what we have to use. Okay, after deciding for a designing of the footing, we have to calculate the bearing capacity of the soil, and this is just an example. Bearing capacity of the different types of soil or rocks is these values. Now all the criteria related to footing is given in your IS 456 page number 63 onwards, clause number 34. In that all the criteria is related to your footing, so there is no need to worry. So first we have to consider in column design, that is the critical sections. We know this. Let us consider this: a pad footing and let us say it's a slope footing. Okay, so for this we have to consider a critical sections. Okay, so what do we mean by critical sections? Okay, so for isolated column footing, three sections are important. Critical section. So there are three sections which is very important. The first is your critical section. for bending moment. Second is critical sections for one-way shear, and third one is critical section for two-way shear. Okay, so if footing depth is very less, then column may punch through footing. Okay, if your depth is very less, so there are chances that your column is punched in your footing. Column is punched in your footing. There are chances. Okay, so first we'll take this case, critical sections for bending moment. Okay, so for a maximum bending moment, critical section is taken on the face of the column. So if this is your column, so for a maximum bending moment, your critical section is taken on the face of the column. On the face of the column means at any face, like this. Here, this XX you can say. Okay, this is your width of footings. So at this point, at the face of the column, critical section is considered. So if column is rectangular, critical section are in XX and YY direction on the face of the column, and the higher value of bending moment is used for design. Higher value of bending moment, so we have to take critical section. So in an example, this thing is very clear to you how we can do this check. Okay, so critical sections for a bending moment we have to consider in column at the face of the column. So in XX and in YY direction we have to calculate the moments, and higher value of bending moment we have to use for the design. So at the critical section at XX, so we can write that your bending moment is WL square by 2, where your W is equals to net upward soil pressure into your width of footing. So it is ultimately P into BF. Okay, so we also have to consider, because when we apply a load on a column or load on a footing, so there is but obvious that there will be a upward soil pressure because of your loading. So that also we need to consider. If your that pressure is high, so there are chances of overturning. So we also have to consider that portion. Now second case is critical section for one-way shear. Second case is critical section for one-way shear. Now for a one-way shear, see here we have to draw a figure compulsory to understand that. So this is your footing, pad footing or sloped footing. So critical section for one-way shear, here we have to, one-way shear means only a one direction you will have to consider, only a one side. So a critical section assumed as a vertical section located from the face of the column, pedestal or a wall at a distance equals to effective depth D of the footing. Okay, So we will say that for a one-way shear, critical section is taken at distance d from the face of the column. So critical section we will take at this distance d from the face of the column. That d distance is your depth of your footing. That d is your depth of the footing. So for a one-way shear, critical section is taken at a distance d from the face of the column, where d is the effective depth of the footing. Okay, and let us take this. This is your hedge area. So this is my upward pressure, whatever the pressure, that is W kilonewton per meter. This is the width of the column, width of the footing. This is your y axis. So that distance is this distance, which is from the face of your column. So how we can check this, that our footing is safe in one-way shear or not? So here we have to use the criteria of shear strength design. So find design shear strength of the concrete. Find design shear strength of the concrete, that is tau c, for a percentage of steel. Okay, that is given in IS 456, page number 73, table number 19. We also know that tau v is equals to VU upon BD. This is your nominal shear stress, where VU is shear strength. Shear strength is ultimately shear force on hedged area. Shear force on hedged area, that is your net upward pressure into your width of your footing. So if your footing, if your footing depth, overall D, depth of footing, is less than 300 mm, the design shear strength of the concrete is taken as K into tau c. If your depth of the footing is less than 300 mm, then design shear strength of concrete is taken K into tau c, where value of K you will have to take from the page number 72 of IS 456. If for tau c and tau v value we have to calculate, and if my tau v is less than tau c, if tau v is less than tau c, so tau c is greater value, my design shear stress is greater than your nominal shear stress, then you can say that my footing is safe in one-way shear. So critical section for one-way shear means we have to check critical section for one-way shear, that our footing is safe in one-way shear or not. So for that you have to calculate tau c and tau v. Okay, tau c is your design shear strength, which you are getting from the percentage of steel, and tau v you need to calculate from the VU by nominal shear stress, VU by VD equation. All the data you are having, upward pressure, then you need to calculate and check tau v less than tau c or not. If that is correct, then if this condition is satisfied, then you can say that our footing is safe in one-way shear. Now third is your critical section for two-way shear. So in one-way shear we have considered only a one direction, here critical section for two-way shear. So for two-way shear, critical section is taken at distance 0.5 d from the face of the column. So let us take this column. So critical section we have to take, that is a distance 0.5 d from the face of the column. So but two-way shear, so on a both the direction. So that both direction includes, you can say, d by 2 distance. It means from here d by 2 and here d by 2, here d by 2 and here d by 2. So this total hedge area is this much. Total hedged area is this much, and this d by 2 distance is the value 0.5 d, or you can say it's a d by 2. You can also say that it's a 0.5 d. D by 2, that whole distance. So you can say this is a width of your column, this is a width of your footing, this is width of your column. So this one edge, this one edge, this one edge and this one edge, so that one edge is b dash. So we can say that it's a 4b dash critical section we are having on for the side. So that is your length of your critical section, that is 4 times b dash, this width, this width, this width and this width. So we have a, I will draw a figure again. We have a column here, critical section we have to take, that is 0.5 d distance from your face of the column on both the sides. So here 0.5 d, and divide d is the depth of your footing, and here 0.5 d, opposite of that, that is on every 4 sides. So this is your critical section and this is your footing width, whatever your foundation is, sloped or pad footing. So this much is your critical section that we need to take into consideration. So I repeat again, for a two-way shear, critical section is taken at a distance 0.5 d from the face of the column, where d is your effective depth of footing. Now for a sloped footing, d is the effective depth of footing at a column face. Okay, at the column face, small d. Now Vu is equals to shear force on area outside the critical section. Okay, so where Vu is equals to, you can write that P into hedged area, where P is your upward pressure. What is your hedged area is this area. So how you can calculate, if you want to calculate this, then capital BF minus 4 times B dash, you can able to calculate your hedged area. So hedged area is, it is on both the sides, so you can write the width of footing square minus width of this B dash square, width of one hedge area on one side. So this is how you can calculate this hedge area, and P is your net upward pressure on hedged area. Okay, upward pressure on hedged area, this area, whatever the upward pressure is, and that area is this capital small bf square minus b square. Now nominal shear stress tau v, nominal shear stress tau v is equals to VU divided by V0 into D. It is equation is VU divided by BD, but here B is your length of your critical section, where B0 is your length of critical section. So that length is 4B dash. That length is 4B dash that we have to take in consideration. So that ultimately equation become, that is 4B dash into D. That is your tau V. This is your one equation, okay, where D is your depth of your footing at critical section. Now this is your tau V and tau C. So tau C is your design shear stress in concrete is equals to tau C dash is equals to Ks into tau C. This equation is given in IS 456 page number 58-59. Design shear stress for 2A shear, that is tau C dash is equals to Ks into tau C. This equation we have to take into consideration. So where Ks is, this whole thing is given, is equals to 0.5 plus your beta C, okay, where your Ks should not exceed 1, okay, where your beta C is equals to short side of column divided by long side of column, and tau C is, this is also given, tau C is equals to 0.25 under root FCK. So we are having this tau C dash, put the value of tau C over here, and Ks should not exceed 1, and calculate tau C dash and tau V if tau V less than tau C dash. So tau C dash is greater, my design shear stress is greater than your nominal shear stress, then you can say that my section is safe in two-way shear. Okay, so for a critical section in one-way shear, tau V less than tau C, where tau V is equals to VU by BD, and tau C is depend upon your percentage of steel. And critical section in two-way shear, for my tau V is also less than tau C dash, where tau C dash is equals to Ks into tau C. Tau C is equals to 0.25 under root FCK. These equations are given page number 58 and 59. So this is all about your critical section for bending moment, critical section for one-way shear, and critical section for two-way shear. Okay, so now we'll move towards, these all are the checks, you can say. Your after designing, your footing will be checked for one-way shear and two-way shear, and another check is check for development length. Now for a check for development length, equation is given on page number 42 of IS 456. LD, development length, is equals to 5 sigma s divided by 4 tau BD, where sigma s is 0.87 Fy. Now this is a check for development length equation. So calculate development length provided from the face of the column. So LD provided greater than LD required. This is your required, and whatever you are going to provide, that should be greater than your required. So here after this you can write that now calculate LD provided from the face of column. So this is the only check for its development length. Now next is your reinforcement requirement. This is all about your checks. Next is reinforcement requirements for footings. So the minimum reinforcement, first we'll talk about that. Your minimum reinforcement. So for that, criteria is given in IS 456 page number 65. So sorry, it's on a 66. So minimum reinforcement is that 0.15% of your gross area. So gross area is capital D, B into capital D, and 0.12% of gross area for P into capital D, but this is for FE 250 and this is for FE 415, same as it is in your slab. Okay, now this is your minimum reinforcement requirement. Next is your distribution of tensile reinforcement, your main reinforcement. Second is your tensile reinforcement. Okay, so tensile reinforcement shall be distributed across the corresponding resistance sections which are given below. Below it means here, and it is given in page number 65. It is given in page number 65. So there are a few criteria in that, so I'm not going to write in that, but I will discuss with you. So that criteria are based on one-way reinforced footing and two-way reinforced footing. Okay, so in a one-way reinforced footing, the reinforcement shall be distributed. You just go through your page number 65. Criteria are given in tensile reinforcement. So in a one-way reinforced footing, the first criteria is that in a one-way reinforced footing, the reinforcement shall be distributed uniformly across the full width of the footing. In a one-way reinforced footing, the reinforcement shall be distributed uniformly across the full width of footing. It means your reinforcement are distributed equally on the width of footing. Second criteria is that in a two-way reinforced square footing, the reinforcement extending in each direction shall be distributed uniformly across the full width of the footing. And third criteria is given also that in a two-way reinforced rectangular footing, the reinforcement in long direction shall be distributed uniformly across the full width of the footing. It means for a rectangular footing, it will be distributed equally along the full width of the footing, equally divided, and for a square footing also it will be equally divided along the width of the footing. So tensile reinforcement should be equally distributed along the width of its footing. Okay, so for reinforcement in short direction, this is all about your long direction. What about if we are having a footing like this? So in a long side, it will be distributed along its width. So whatever the width, it will be equally distributed. Now what about its shorter direction? How we can provide that? So for reinforcement in short direction, the central band equal to width of the footing shall be worked along the length of the footing, and the portion of the reinforcement determined in accordance with the equation given uniformly distributed across the band. So that equation is, see, what is the band? So let me draw a figure over here. So in a rectangular footing, so there are three bands in that. Three bands means, say, this is your, if we talk about, this is your end part. So if we divide our reinforcement in two zones, so this is your end part, 1, 2 and 3. So these two are the end parts, you can say end bands. Okay, and this is your middle bands. These are the end bands and middle bands, and this is your longer direction where that reinforcement is equally divided along the its width. But whenever rectangular reinforcement is there, so reinforcement rectangular for a shorter direction, sorry, for reinforcement in shorter direction, a central band equal to its width of the footing shall be worked along the length of the footing, and the portion of the reinforcement is determined according to the equation. That equation is your reinforcement in central band width divided by total reinforcement in short direction. Okay, so that equation will become is equals to 2 divided by beta plus 1, where beta is equals to long side of footing divided by short side of footing. Okay, so this is all about your tensile reinforcement and minimum reinforcement, which is given on 65 and 66 number pages. Next is your spacing of the bars. Spacing of the bars. So this spacing, the redistribution of the moment is not done in footing, so therefore clear distance between the two bars shall not exceed the criteria which is given in IS 456 page number 46 table number 15, where it is given for a certain grade of steel, that is 250, 415 and 500, that clear distance between the bar, that is for a 250 it is 300 mm, for a 415 it is 180 mm, and for a 500 it is 150 mm. So this is about the spacing of a bar, which is given in table number 15. Now what is the cover we will provide? So that is also given in IS 456 page number 46, cover for the footing, page number 46, clause number 26.4.2.2. So minimum 50 mm clear cover is required, minimum for a footing. Clear cover is required for the footing. So this is all about the spacing of your bar and cover. Now last thing about the theory of the footing, that is your transfer mechanism. So transfer of load from column to footing. So this criteria is given in page number 65, clause number 34.4. So read all the criteria carefully. After reading, I will conclude that column load is transferred to footing through its bearing, where bearing pressure below column should not exceed, we can write that column load is transferred to footing through bearing. Okay, so bearing pressure below column should not exceed bearing pressure below column should not exceed 0.45 FCK. Okay, so where bearing pressure on footing should not exceed bearing pressure below column should not exceed, this is below column should not exceed 0.45 FCK. Now, and bearing pressure on footing should not exceed 0.45 FCK under root A1 by A2, and this under root A1 by A2 should be between 1 and 2. It should be between 1 and 2. Now what is A1 and what is A2? So concrete in the footing near the column is confined by the surrounding concrete. So because of that reason, factor under root A1 by A2 has been introduced when column is directly resting on footing. So A1 is area of footing and A2 is cross-sectional area of column. So A1 is area of footing and A2 is area of column. Okay, and A1 is taken as a smaller of two values. Which values? That is BC and LC is the dimension of the column, BF and LF are the dimension of footing, and D is the depth of the footing, where A1 is these two values. This is 1 BF into LF, and second one is A1 is equals to B1 plus 4 times D into LC plus 4 times D. Smaller of two value we have to take in consideration, that is your A1, BF into LF, and A1 is equal to BC plus 4D into LC plus 4D. So allowable bearing force, this is a bearing pressure on footing should not exceed this value, but allowable bearing force is equals to 0.45 FCK into area of column. Okay, so if factored load on column is greater than the allowable bearing force, the column load cannot be transferred to footing through bearing alone. That's why we have to use the dowel bars, where if your factored load on column PU is greater than your allowable bearing force, then the column load cannot be transferred through the footing through bearing alone. We also have to add the dowel bars. So this is all about your isolated column footing theory. So in the next video we will solve an example related to isolated column footing, a design numerical. Thank you.